Hello, welcome to this episode of TurboShed, and in this one we do all the rest of the finishing off jobs and get the car ready for the circuit. Next job on the turbo is to sort out the oil lines, and the feed is, I think I'm using a -3 for the feed. -3, -6, can't remember. Anyway, the feed's dead easy, it just goes straight in the top of the turbo, and we've got a union spare on the remote filter head, so I can just plumb straight into that. The drain is a little bit more tricky. This obviously 366 turbo, this is the flange for the drain. This is an AN10 thread on here, a couple of bolts, fits underneath the turbine housing. Bizarrely enough, the turbo is supplied without any studs, and the threads that hold it are actually Whitworth. So I've had to make a couple of studs, so they're Whitworth one end, British Cycle the other, just because I had the nuts. So then we can put the studs in for the drain, put that on, and then I can use a -10 pipe, and we'll be able to feed that down, and I need to get it around these pipes here. Now the tricky bit is the other end, which goes into the sump or the block. Now lots of people on the Lexus use the use the electric dipstick hole. I can't use that because it's on the other side of the engine to the turbo, so I'm going to drill through the sump plate. There's like an adapter that goes between the block and the steel sump, an aluminium casting that runs around. And I think I will drill into that and tap it, and then I will put this union here into the sump, and then I can use a normal elbow or something. So let's have a look and get these lines sorted out. So here's our union, and obviously this is going into a slightly curved surface on the sump, so I'm actually going to use some pipe seal. I've washed the thread out, and I've washed this part with brake cleaner, so we know everything's clean. And if I put a bit of pipe seal on this thread, there's obviously no oil pressure behind it, it's only working as a drain. But we'll stick a bit of thread sealer on there, and then we can pop this in, tighten it up, and we have an oil drain in the sump. There we are, there's our drain port. So now we can pipe it up to here, and let's put a nice fall on it, and that'll be our oil drain done. Here's our oil lines done. So this is the oil feed, so all I'm going to do is, when I've finally fixed the remote filter housing in somewhere, I'll use that port there to put the end of that pipe into, so that's dead easy. And the drain runs from here, and it's pretty much straight down there into the sump. All I've got to do is put some heat resistant covering on that pipe there, because it goes between the manifold and the dump, although the dump's not quite in the right place there. And that's it. I think the oil lines are done, so next job. Here's our oil drain pipe in, so you can see here that we've wrapped it because it's very, very close to the dump pipe and the manifold. So that runs down to there, so you can see we've got a nice line to it. Put the oxygen sensor in here, which I'll wire into the one that sits under the driver's feet in the footwell. I'll just put the radiator in just to see where everything fits, and as you can see there's not a lot of room down here, but there's enough. But the problem we've got is this. So this is what we made to go to our pipe, which is on the bottom corner of the radiator there. This top one is okay, that'll go to there, across here, so we can keep that one. But this one we need to change it, and I think the best thing to do is to bring it straight out from here, and then I can put a silicone hose 90 degree, and we'll run it down the back of the radiator in the middle and across the bottom underneath the radiator, so it's clear of the dump and this exhaust cross pipe. So we'll take this off and cut it up and do a bit of welding. So you can see how our hoses fit here, so that was easy enough. Nice simple job, and this will go straight into the thermostat housing. So the next job is just to cut that bend off the thermostat housing, and we'll weld a straight on there instead, and that'll be it. That'll be our radiator piping done. So here's our radiator hose. This is done now, so it just runs across the bottom of the radiator, straight up the centre between the fans, and across here and straight into the thermostat housing, and the top hose will come over the top of there. So I think we're okay with all of that now. So we have our main oil feed line that comes up here to the sandwich plate, which I've mounted here. I'm going to put a new filter on because we'll change the oil as soon as we put a new turbo on. So the feed comes in here. To the outside of the filter we have an adapter here, which is for the turbo oil pressure feed, which is just above the oil pressure switch, and then pipes come out here, out through the hole we've got here, across the front of the engine, into the oil cooler, through the oil cooler, and then back down to the engine with the cool filtered oil. So that's that one done, and I'm just going to put this one in. It used to be our transmission cooler when we had the auto box. I'm actually going to repipe this one and use it as the power steering cooler, because the power steering cooler used to sit down here and I took all that out. So we'll just we'll pipe this up. It's dead simple because it's only low pressure lines, so we'll make a couple of mounts and put that on. And that is our oil system and turbo feed. This is our line. The only thing I'm going to do is change this. At the moment it's a straight. I've got a 90 degree on order just because it'll fit nicer, and that goes straight into the top of the turbo over here. There we are. And that is, I think, once I've done these two power steering pipes, which are dead easy, we've actually finished the plumbing on this car, which has been a mammoth job. Well, as you'll see here, one of the aims of this project was to keep the sleeper look of the car, and I've just popped the lights and the bonnet and the bumper back on, and you can have a look. It's taken an awful lot of chopping to get everything in, but it's all gone in, and you can't tell any of it's there. The only way you can tell is if you peer down through the grille, you can see the intercooler. But if we pop the bonnet, you'll see how this is all packaged. And there we are. So we can see our coolers. Everything fits. It's very, very tight to the headlamps and such like. So that's the power steering cooler. oil cooler, behind it is the intercooler, and behind that is the radiator. So it's all in. Right, more finishing off job now. And you might remember that we put the old right hand post cat oxygen sensor here into the dump pipe. The left hand post cat one I'm going to leave where it is because the exhaust's going there, but this one we have this connector, and I've got to connect this into what was in the driver's footwell. So if we head around to the footwell, this is where the socket used to be, and this is the hole where the oxygen sensor cable used to go through. So these are the secondary. So what I've done is I've just taken it, here's the connector, I've just routed it out of this plastic cover. I've got this cable here that I'm going to run around underneath the dash, and simply solder. I'll cut this connector off here, we'll solder this on, and then we'll connect the other end up, and that will be our oxygen sensor. So we'll have all 4 of them connected up. So here's the grey wire in the engine bay that we did down to the driver's footwell. Runs up here, follows the harness to here, and simply all we've got to do now is we've got the connectors here, we can connect this together, and then our original post cat oxygen sensor is connected up. There we are, that's that done. We'll clip those wires back once I've put the radiator in finally, and again, another step closer. Right, the next job on this for wiring is that I had to move the fuse box here because it used to sit here, which is far too close to the wastegate. So we're just going to make a bracket and move this and the alternator power cable so that it's out of the way. So we'll pull the air cleaner off for a minute. I think we'll just mount it on the side of the fuse box right where it is there, because then the wires will reach. Three, two, one. Well, the wiring wasn't so bad in the end, so I've kept the original piece here. I'll put the plastic cover over to protect that, being that that's a live connection, and just made a small jump lead that runs around here, and relocated the fuse box to the side of here, and being plastic it's insulated. So our wiring there is sorted now, and everything's away from hot bits. Last wire, which is this one, is the one that used to go to the oil pressure sensor switch, and of course that is now on our other side of the engine bay, right over there on the remote filter housing. So I'll have to run a cable all the way across the front of the car for that, and that's it. The wiring is then done.
So the front of the car's almost finished now. We've put the right size tube onto the intercooler from the turbo, and all the cooling's all done. We've put some rubber hosing around the oil lines and the power steering lines to protect them so they don't rub and leak and pour fluid everywhere. And we've decided to keep this aluminium bar across the front because the bumper hangs off it, and we don't really want to make hundreds of new mounts for everything. And now we'll put the bumper on, put the lights in, and that's it. The front of the car's finished.
So we've only got a couple of jobs left on this now. We need to secure the breather bottle for the radiator, and the other thing is, because we've turbocharged it, we've had to disconnect the engine breathers. There's one here on this cam cover, and there's another one over here on this cam cover, and normally they go into this pipe here, which is for the idle control valve. So actually the idle control valve came off the manifold, the plastic box. So I've plumbed the idle control valve into what was the engine breather, and we'll take these engine breathers off to atmospheric. So we'll pipe them over, probably over onto this side of the engine. We'll stick a bottle in here, run both breathers into it, and then it means we don't pressurize the crankcase with turbo boost, because if you do that, bad things happen, as in it blows oil seals out and things like that. Right, that's our breathers plumbed into bottles, so we've just got one looped over here and a bottle there where the old alarm bracket used to be. That works. And the other one just loops around from that rocker cover down here to a separate bottle here. I've just separated them out, so if one of them is chuffing oil or smoke or anything out, we'll know which bank may be the problem. That's it, we are done. So we have the standard Lexus, we've got the oil cooler here, power steering cooler here, intercooler here, radiator, turbo. We replumbed the pipes. This is our pressure line coming off the compressor outlet. We're just going to run spring pressure initially, 7 psi spring we've got in it, which should be fine on the standard ECU. Well, here we are. I've reached the point where I've got a couple of silicone hoses and things coming for it, so some of the ones on are a bit temporary. I've given it fresh oil and filter, as you would, because it's got a new turbo on. I think it's time to see if it will start. There's no water in it at the moment, so I'm not going to run it for very long, but I just want to make sure we've got no fundamental leaks, problems, etc. So I think it's time to fill our boots and give this a go. There we are, all looks good. I don't want to run it anymore because there's no water in it. It whistles and makes choo-choo noises. It's a turbo LS400. Right, the only thing left to do is to move the car and wait until we're ready to load. So that's it, running, ticking over as sweet as you like. You would never know what's hiding in there, which is very nice. That was the whole idea of this project. Certainly got a deep noise to it now. I hope it's not too noisy. Well, doesn't smell too rich, so it must have sorted itself out on the fueling with the oxygen sensors. So let's move it, park it up, and wait till we put it on the trailer for Teesside. And I think we are now ready to go with TurboShed. So next outing, Teesside, and hopefully we'll see you there and the car runs okay, because it's going to land on the track totally untested. Thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed it.